also have, I had the privilege this morning of visiting our different summer programs I've been doing throughout the summer. But I spent the morning at Amity High School. The children are so engaged, there's so much laughter, there's so much joy. I have a chance to interact with a lot of parents either before the program starts or when they come to pick up the children. And the general consensus of the feedback is that there's a safe, caring place for children and learning opportunities. Dennis Claridis, our state representative, visited today and had a tour of the place also. And we saw children in the summer enrichment engaged in so many different types of activities. Now, we had planned, we had projected that there would be maybe a 35% less enrollment in the program. We don't have the complete numbers yet. We still have a few weeks to go. But recently, the enrollment has been averaging about 105 to 110, which is, I would say, about 80% of the capacity as well as last year. Please remember the fact that we've had to have different facilities, so some of the programs we couldn't run this summer, but there's a lot of creativity and flexibility in working. There's also a wonderful, wonderful reading clinic that's going on, and there are 27 children involved in that. And I visited that early this morning. Mrs. Acuzzi is in charge of that program. And the children are so engaged. They're learning not only how to read, but how to write, nonfiction writing, and they're doing that through science experiments. We've also visited the recreation program, and the numbers are very high in recreation. Remembering the fact that there are multiple fields and opportunities for different types of clinics and activities for the students, so that blends in nicely. And then also our extended day, the numbers are about the same as last year, so that's running well. And I jumped into Officer Lynch's police car, and we went over to Ezra Academy to look at the special ed program. It was delightful. It's such a comfortable, nurturing environment for children. All of this highlights our appreciation to the type of collaboration and cooperation and community support that exists here in Woodbridge. We're very, very grateful for everyone reaching out to us, and we in turn, when the opportunity presents itself, like to do the same thing. So our children are being well cared for, and that makes us all feel very, very good. The place that never sleeps, I couldn't make it this Saturday, but I'm here. If you pass by this Saturday, you would have seen dozens of workers, worker bees in the building doing all kinds of installations and so on. And we invited our two project managers, who I have a lot of respect for. These two gentlemen have been, they have a high sense of integrity, a tremendous knowledge base, and they've been working very, very closely with us from the beginning. So Paul Gandy and also Matthew Ward are with us, and they'll give us an executive summary of some of the things that are going on and what to expect. So Paul and Matthew, you could use the microphone right up there.
Thank you, Dr. Stella, and the board for inviting us. My name is Paul Gandy. As the guy remembered, that's amazing, isn't it? And also my co-project manager, Matt Ward. We work together to do the on-site daily management of the construction effort for Beecher Road School. I'd like to give you a few highlights, and if you have any questions, please ask. We were able to sign a contract, I'm happy to say, with the town on May the 22nd. And on that day, we were able to begin writing subcontracts to our folks, start the submittal process, and then after submittals were approved, we started the ordering process for key materials that really drive the schedule to allow us to really start effective work. We received from the town a mechanical permit to perform work in the second week of July, on July 7th. Prior to that, we were able to, again with town permission, to allow ESG to do demolition work. We did demolition of existing ceilings in the major hallways that are to be replaced. those ceilings came out because there are mechanical systems, which are piping and units and things like that, that go above those major ceilings. So those were taken out in advance of a full permit. We were maximizing the use of that time. We were able to do mechanical demolition as well, which involves removing old ductwork that's not to be reused, old piping systems that are not to be reused. That also gave us a little opportunity to fabricate new stuff while we were waiting on this permit to arrive, which it did on July 7th. Unit ventilators, which are the pieces of equipment that are the heating and cooling apparatus soon for the rooms in the A, B, C, and K wings, have been ordered. They are due for a late August delivery. Fan coil units, which are the same type of heating and cooling apparatus, which is above the ceiling. All of those materials have been ordered. There's other equipment that are called energy recovery units. They have been ordered. There's the new 275-ton chiller, your new big air conditioner, which will sit on the roof. It, as well as the new microturbine, have been ordered. All of those things are in process now. The submittals have been approved, and the ordering has taken place, and we await their delivery. As far as effective construction of things that have occurred, we have about 75% on the new hot water piping loop. That is 2 pipes that go from the boiler area all the way down to the pool. This entire north-south hallway, the ceilings are out primarily for that reason, and that work is about 75% complete. The ductwork in the S wing, the rotunda area, and the related classrooms, all of the ductwork that was to be removed, of course, is gone. The new ductwork is about 35 to 40% complete, and it is now installed. All of these things are above the ceiling, so when the ceilings are put back, you won't really be able to understand or appreciate what happened. So we're happy to, try to inform you of what's going on. We're fabricating new millwork that goes in the A and the C wings this fall. And the millwork goes where you have existing sinks and bubblers. Those areas come out, and new pieces of millwork go in. It's both the base unit and the upper units. The structural steel that holds up the new chiller on the roof has been ordered, and it's being fabricated currently. We will replace with a very specific program the existing window walls in the A and the C wings this fall. That is, we're behind what we wanted to do in that effort, but this time we do have a very specific plan that allows us, with great team coordination, I might add, through the school, to allow us to complete a room at a time with downtime for that particular room of 1 day. So we can move, again, with a combination of day and night work on our behalf, will allow those rooms to be completed this year. We will be starting painting of the hallways and parts of the A-wing classrooms on July 28th. The building envelope, which is a weatherization and caulking and sealant package, started today. We have a crew that arrived from the Baltimore area today to start that. And we also have insulators that are taking the old insulation off the existing piping as well as the new piping, and we're putting on new insulation there to encapsulate those pipes, because when you provide heating and chilled water through the pipe, there's a condensation issue. So all of that piping, again, which you won't ever see, is new. All the insulation is. That is my summary of what's going on. I would very gladly say that Dr. Stella and Al and Greg Kula are very much team members of ours. We would not be able to proceed the work in nearly as orderly fashion without their help, and I do very much appreciate that. Any questions?
Thanks. Also mentioned the fact that the ceilings are open. We're taking advantage of that time to put in wiring for our network working system, so that will have a lot of long-term cost savings in doing that. And again, we appreciate the cooperation of our project managers who are making it possible. Next item. Oh, still on. The other problem, talking about vision and so on, one of our goals at Beecher Road School is constantly to raise the awareness of our children and as to the fact that we're a global society and the importance of intercultural communication and the various cultures in the world and sensitivity to that too. We have a number of programs doing that. We have, by the way, one of our teachers, Katerina Zdrowski, is in Morocco now, and she is with a group of Connecticut educators and working for the University of New Haven on a Fulbright grant. And she started a blog, which we'll try to get on the website as quickly as possible. And she will be initiating conversations with families here and children here in Woodbridge with children in Morocco. It's summer school in Morocco, so she's having a challenge around to help the children there, but she'll do it. Also, another project involved with global awareness is a language program. The Woodbridge Public Library and the Woodbridge School District have entered into a partnership to promote the study of world languages and cultures, to make it a virtual learning process. And that's through an organization, a company called Transparent Language Online, that is providing digital access for all Beecher Road families and the citizens of Woodbridge to access to over 60 world languages, including classical languages such as Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, and as well as more than 25 English as a second language programs. Now, we launched this with the library on July 1st. We didn't expect many people to get on initially, because this would be a process that over a year's time or so, we want to just build up the enthusiasm and the audience. But I'm told by the director of the library, Todd Fabian, who's with us tonight, that we already have 24 families registered. And Todd is going to come and give us, again, a little summary of what it takes to get on, what the program offers.
Thanks, Dr. Stella. Thanks for having me tonight. Just want to kind of give you a quick overview of what Transparent Language is. All you need to access it is a Woodbridge Library card. So I'm totally going to put you on the spot. How many of you have a Woodbridge Library card? Raise your hands. Audience as well. See in the back. Cameraman. So it's a good sign. And almost 3/4 of Woodbridge residents have a card already. So we're just trying to reach those who don't, and also get the kids in who don't have the cards, of course, so that everyone will have access to the platform. And what you're going to be able to see here is we're on the Beecher's new website. We're just going to click on the language learning opportunity link here. Then you'll see here a little something about Transparent Language Online. You can go to the Woodbridge Library website, or we can just click on this here. So the first time you log in, what you're going to see is a username and password. If you haven't logged in before, you're going to click on this little purple icon, and this is going to be the only time you ever have to put your library card number in. You can put it in once, you never have to put it in again, then you will create a profile. And the nice thing about this is we were concerned about privacy and making sure that both students and adults and families would have access, but we wouldn't be able to kind of necessarily give out personal information. To set up your account, you don't need an email, you don't need a credit card, you don't need any of that. Dr. Stella and his team came up with a suggested username for the students to use, and then of course if you're a patron of the public, you can just come up with your own username and password. The only reason they require that is so that when you log back in the next time, you can save your progress from the different languages. This platform has 80 different languages, from basic information for kind of the, I guess, the more uncommon ones to 26 ESL languages the other way. And we felt the platform was important that way because as more and more families are moving into the community, they might have parents, siblings, grandparents who the command of the English language is not maybe what they hope it would be. So I'll just kind of show you a little bit of an intro. And Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, of course, are on there as well, which are pretty neat. So we just started marketing this at the library. We kind of waited until just about a week or so ago. You're going to start seeing articles in the paper about this. And in the first month, some of the nice things are metrics. As we go through this, Dr. Stella and I can get metrics moving into the future about which languages the patrons access the most. So in the first month, there were 48 sessions done. 29 of them were Spanish Latin American, 16 were Chinese Mandarin, 16 Italian, 10 Hebrew, and then Greek, Spanish, Castilian, Dutch, German, all the way down. And we even had 2 English for Italian speakers the other way. So very early data. We just, not expecting too much participation in summer, but as we move into the fall, we're going to really start to ratchet up this. So if we're looking at alphabet familiarization, I lost the flash again. It's all right. So I got some technical difficulties. Basically, you have vocab, which I'm not going to be able to probably show you some of this. The computer's not cooperating tonight. But there's vocab, there's an intro to kind of the history of the language, there's adjectives, there's conversational. A lot of them are travel related, of course, so this is great if you're going on vacation somewhere, you just want to have command of the language for a week. There's sections on, like if you're at a restaurant, if you're at a hotel, if you're at the airport, or you can get more extensive with full conversations that you can translate, practice. You can slow down the speech. You can record, it kind of does assignments, so you can kind of go back and see how you did. At the end of the lesson, you can retake the lesson. So it really depends on what you want to get out of it. And then of course with Latin, there's just an immense amount of vocabulary that you can kind of hammer away at and practice with. It's great for SAT prep, things like that as you get older. But we felt like the library and Dr. Stella felt like there was a nice option for a new project to do together. Hopefully we'll have some other projects as well. So if you don't have a library card, you just need to stop at the Woodbridge Library. All you need is a current address, like a driver's license or some sort of photo ID with the current address. We'll get you a card, and then you're free. This is accessible 24/7 from home, from anywhere. There is an app that they're unveiling, though I'm not going to promote the app yet because there's some quirks that I'm working on with them about the app. But eventually you will be able to access this on your phone pretty easily as well. So that's also great for traveling, that you don't need to have a computer with you. So questions on Transparent right now?
Great.
I have to say, it's a pleasure working
Yes.
with
Sorry I couldn't show it to you, but I'd say go home and play with it, see what you think.
I'm sorry, Lisa has a question.
No, not such a question. I just want to express my appreciation to both you and Dr. Stella for moving forward with this. I think it's really a lot of fun. We've already signed up and played around.
Oh, great.
with it. And it's really a neat program.
Yeah, more libraries especially are getting on board with it, and of course the more that come into the pod, the better, the more info they're going to put into it and the more data. So they keep increasing languages as we go and getting more extensive. So that's the hope is that a few years down the road, they're really going to have a lot more to offer.
Now, the library and Beecher Road School are two important educational organizations in the town, and we'll reach out to the other schools too. But it's a step I think it's the right step in the direction of more virtual learning and personalized learning that our children and families will be experiencing as we move towards the future. It's a pleasure working with the library with Todd. We were collaborating on several programs, including our reading program for the summer. And it's just a pleasure working with them, and it wouldn't be possible without Todd's assistance, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having us, and we look forward to working with the school here in the near future and the kids as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
The next topic that we'll go into is Sheila Haxkamp, our Director of Special Education, has just an update on a different type of survey.
I just wanted to make sure that I informed you as a board that Woodbridge has been selected by Connecticut State Department for the Special Education Parent Survey. They have a 6-year cycle. So the last time was the 2007-8 school year. So it's our turn again. And we want to encourage families to participate in the survey. And I know we've had a couple surveys recently, but this will really inform us in terms of how parents feel about their child's progress in special education, their ability to participate in the process, and the support systems that they feel are in place. And I think it certainly could inform us in ways that would help us deliver the best services we can appropriately. So I want to let you know that if people ask you about it, encourage them to participate. It is a sampling of students who are identified as students with special needs, so every parent may not get the mailing from the State Department, but wanted to make sure that you knew about it. And I assume that we'll have the results probably later, in fall time or something like that.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Tools for School update. As you know, Woodbridge School District has gotten involved with a program called Tools for School, and there's some accolades of the state on it. And our cool is our liaison with that lead person, and he'll let you know what Tools for School is and what we're doing.
Thank you, Dr. Stock. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board and the community. This year is my second presentation to you on the Tools for Schools program at Beecher Road School. Just a reminder of what Tools for Schools is. It's a program that was created by the Environmental Protection Agency to help school districts throughout the nation to identify, assess, and improve air quality. What is air quality? When we speak to air quality, what does it relate to? It relates to temperature, humidity, ventilation, and any chemical or biologic contaminants of the air flowing inside the building, the comfort level of occupants inside the building. All these elements affect the various comfort levels. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the members of the Tools for Schools Committee. Dr. Stoller, Superintendent, Mrs. Prisco, Lola Johnson, Administrative Assistant in the North Office, our Nursing Supervisor, Stacy Capps, Greg Kula, our Facilities Manager, John Ladano, the Health Inspector with Quinnipiac Valley Health District, Shannon Martinello, our Parent Representative of the PTO, Jane Roddy, our Food Service Supervisor, Karen Stevinger, our Science Teacher, and yours truly. The reason I want to take a moment to acknowledge these members is no different than any other committee. There's an investment, there's time, but as you'll see in this slide, there's a lot of meetings and the duration of those meetings. Those that are asterisked were 2+ hours. So that's where we carved out the building footprint that you see in the diagram on the side. Carved out in classroom by classroom, office by office, south assembly, gymnasium, all the common areas. We went through using our checklist, which was provided by the Tools for Schools program guidelines, things to assess ventilation. Are the units blocked? Are they free flowing? Are there signs of water in the ceiling tiles, moisture, leakage, flooring? What's the general condition of the room? Earlier in the year, the Tools for Schools, one of the implementation steps is to survey the staff. So all of the teachers, the classroom teachers, received a survey. How is your room? Are you dusting, your respective areas regularly? Is your trash being cleaned regularly? Do you know where your unit ventilators are? Are your unit ventilators working properly? We use that as our roadmap when the committee visited each classroom, and we compared our inspection results with the teachers, classroom faculty staff results. And what happened afterwards was the staff members got an immediate follow-up letter from the committee confirming, the date we visited the classroom, the key issues that we found, how our survey differed or was the same as the responses provided by the faculty members, and what follow-up items, if any, were needed. This was something that the committee thought would be beneficial in discussion, rolled it out, and it turns out when they found out about it at state level, it's something that has not been done at any other school, so we're pleased to be commended and receive distinction by the State Department of Health for that practice. It's great because it keeps the teacher involved, it keeps the teaching assistants, everybody. It's not just classroom teachers, it's building-wide staff and students. It lets them know what happened after the committee walked through their classroom. We did a lot of good things, but I wanted to consolidate it for the purposes of this presentation. But one of the things I can share with you, we implemented an inventory of classroom rugs. Faculty, as is understandable, become attached to the various belongings in their classrooms. So when there's a structured document out there that's showing the age, and the plan of that is long-term, so that every 5 to 6 years, you're replacing that carpeting. let's face it, it gets used 180 plus days a year, and they get used actively. So this was a constructive way to build in a systematic approach to replacement. And again, it's continued dialogues, it's continued staff training with our custodians, continued raised awareness of staff throughout the building of their actions and impact to others. Small example we had, again, people become attached to belongings in their environment, and we had folks with artificial plants that didn't think anything of it, look great in the place that they're in, but without proper maintenance, without routine maintenance, and or if the assumption is that the custodial staff is doing that cleaning, which is not the case, then that's just building up a dust environment, and that dust gets recycled, and all sorts of less than favorable things happen. So that is the presentation, the full speed update for purposes of the presentation. Contained within your packet is the full Tools for Schools Committee report, which goes through survey area question by question, what the findings were and what the recommendations were. The upshot of it, there are items that classified as protocol and procedures that school and district administration will work with staff on updating and implementing. There are things that obviously are related to the building upgrade, which will be addressed as the components and mechanicals of the system are updated. So it's a way to identify and keep a written document of what the issues were. And next year, as we're back and before you with year 3's progress, we hope to be taking a lot of the things off the list. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poole, for your tireless work this year. One thing I want to mention too, we're carefully monitoring our student enrollment. At this point, and it's something that fluctuates, children come, some children leave, and so on. We're at approximately 780 students at this point now, which is a slight increase from last year. And as we promised, we're looking carefully at the numbers, because what grades are children leaving, what grades are they coming in? And we also are leading the charge of the school board to watch the class size guidelines and try to just fashion the whole school in a way that classes don't exceed that, unless it's absolutely nothing we can do about it. But I think we'll be able to come in within those guidelines. We had to take a look at our first grade and our third grade. A number of children are coming into our third grade class. We have 4 classes, so we will be going up to 5 classes, plus the multi-age 6 classes. And with our first grade, we will be going from 7 classes to 6 classes and still staying within our guidelines. Again, that has to do with the ingress, egress of children. So we're watching that very, very carefully. And we anticipate, this is under the direction of Mrs. Briscoe, of sending out letters in early August as far as the enrollment goes. Okay, but now I'd like to give you an executive summary about parent survey. Parent survey, we conducted that in early June and right through July. There were 2 purposes. One was that we really value the input from our Beecher Road School families. They care so much about their children, their community, so it's a very important constituency of our school community. And with that kind of input, the second reason is going to help us, all of us, with our decision making as far as areas that we want to work on, as far as goals for the coming year. It'll also tie into our educators' evaluation plan in helping us identify areas that might be good, but we want to have better, or poor, and we want to improve upon. I'm moving quickly to share this with you because we recently got it and we're still studying it carefully, because I want to make the data as transparent as possible. We followed the advice of the school board. We had SurveyMonkey last year. The advice was to move towards an outside firm that specializes in surveys and does it in a very systemic way. And we picked one, we selected one, Panorama, which a number of Yale graduates I believe started, but it's turned into really a respected statewide and national company. They've been working very closely with us. It's our first endeavor with this year, so there are lessons that have been learned too as we come along. But let me give you an overview, and we're going to try to get this on our website as soon as possible, so again it's transparent for everybody to take a look at. So now, we shared this with the school board, we sent it out before the weekend for you to look at, and you have copies that you can study in the days and weeks ahead. But, so I'd like to give you an executive summary, and I'll do so by showing, we had approximately 58 questions or so, to showing you groups of questions, maybe highlighting one or two as we go along, show you what the rationale was and how the percentages were compiled, and give some preliminary indications of where we see ourselves going as far as goals. So let me start with this here. Okay, there's some preliminary information and questions that were asked of everyone who participated. But now the first part of the report breaks down the questions, has the questions in chronological order from the highest scores down to the lowest scores as far as percentage-wise. So it gives us an idea of where things fall. Then there's a second part that I'll show you that really digs deeper into the data. So if you look at the first set here, again, I'm not going to read everything, but you'll see the school makes effective use of technology for instructional purposes. That's 100% responded favorably. School staff is helpful, 97%. Now, how do they get those percentages? And I'll show you a little more later on it, but I'll give you just a general idea. They take the number of strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree, and that's the denominator. And they'll take the number of strongly agree, and that's the numerator. There you will find, and that's where it helps us to dig into the data, that there's a group of people, sometimes very small, sometimes a little larger, that doesn't have an opinion on it. So that's not counted in the data. Okay. Administrative team creates a school environment that helps children learn, 97%. Now what I would ask you to do is just jot down any notes that you want or any questions that you want afterwards. I'll give you a general overview, and then you could ask any questions, or just dig deep into the data yourself in the coming days and weeks. Okay, so let me go to the next set. Big thing on the bottom there, I feel welcome at school. I think that's a very important indicator. And we had a 95% favorable response. PTO contributes positively to the school, 96%. So there's a whole variety of questions that we're trying to get a whole view of the feelings of the community on this here. My child's teachers care about my child, 96%. Now it goes down as we go along. Now, here's an interesting thing, is that sometimes you have to really put the information together and look at it from different angles. The school provides a high-quality academic program. 95% agreed with that. Now, I'll mention, too, that there were 125 families that responded. Out of a total of, I think, about 545, it was about a 23% response. Now, we're told by the team at Panoramic that in the first year with this kind of survey, where there's an access code and you have to take multiple steps, that a 10 to 15% is a good response. So for the first year, they're telling us that a 23% is a good response. But and we strategize ways, though, of looking for the next time round, of aiming for 30, 40, 45% or higher if we can. Okay, the next set. Take a look. And if you look at the bottom, there's one that says, my child is being prepared with skills needed for success at the next stage of his or her education, 94%. So there was one about school provides a strong academic setting or program, and now it's about skills. I'm going to tie it in with a question later on. Just remember those two. School leadership has made high expectations for student learning explicit at the school. School leadership takes steps to provide a safe environment for my child. We were also told by the company that there was a wide sampling of people because we approached it from multiple points of view. There was a letter that went home. There were 2 recordings that went out. There were 2 to 3 parent e-blasts that went out. There were individual contact from our offices, from the administrative team with parents and meeting and greeting them, and ingress and egress. And we extended the deadline also. Now, if you go up, take a look. I'm comfortable voicing my concern to school administrators, 92%. The arts play a major role in the educational program at the school, 92%. Even though that's high, we were wondering why it wasn't even higher. So these are questions that we ponder. Now here's a very important one. Last year, the survey question was, my child feels she can speak with teachers about any concerns, problems. The response was 30%, 60% always, 39% usually. So that's 75% always or usually. 22% sometimes, and 3% never. So the 22% sometimes concerned us a little bit. I mean, another district might say, wow, 75% that there's good communication, and 22% sometimes, but to us we said, let's dig deeper with that. So we asked the question again, and again, our school-wide goal was to do something about that. One of the steps was to look to provide positive feedback on a child and to contact the parents about it, authentic, positive feedback, and to let the child know, the student know, as a way of building trust with the child. That's between teacher and child. Okay, so this year's return was, my child feels he or she can speak with the teachers about any concerns or problems, and there was a 91% response on that. Okay, if you look at this here, you could look at every one of them, but one that we're taking a look at is, I am satisfied with the way the school communicates with parents, 89%. Well, generally 89% is a fairly good mark, but not good enough. So that's why, a reason why we launched a new website that will also allow the school and the school administration to do e-blasts, the way the middle school does, the way other places do too, on a weekly basis, daily basis, so it will enhance our ability to communicate with parents. Okay, one thing that comes across with several of this here is, as far as the progress report from teachers, is the importance that we're putting on the goal that the school board has given us of implementing a new reporting system. And we're working very hard on that. This work has been done during this past year and during the summer, and we hope to implement it fully by mid-year of this coming year. So we are looking at that. And we are trying to let the data drive our decision-making too. Take a look at this here. The top one says, the school differentiates instruction appropriately to meet my child's academic needs, 82%. Okay, so we had one that said academic program is high, I'm paraphrasing, and that was a 90+%. Another that says our school prepares our children well with the skills that they need for the next stage in middle school, high school. That was very, very high too. And now this is 82%. But that makes sense to us in this sense here. It's a charge that the board has given us too. We seem to have an increasing number of children at high academic levels who are able to ace any kind of test. So the academic program can be a very strong one, but at the same time, there are children who are even beyond that too. as well as children at all different levels. We have children who are coming in, an increasing number too, who aren't up to par on particular grade levels, and everyone in between. As we say, every child has their pathway. So this is encouraging us to really look at continue our efforts at differentiation and tying that in with our teacher evaluation as we move along. So we're looking at the data and we want to move along with. So we're looking at the report card as a major way of reporting progress. We're looking at the website as a major way of communicating with parents. We're looking at really focusing like a laser on differentiation, keep moving along from year to year as a way of trying to meet children at their different levels where we're going. As far as homework, that's something we'll have to look at because we have parents, we have perhaps in next year's survey, we'll dig deeper into that question. Because some parents think we give too much homework, other parents think we don't give enough at all. So there are different worldviews on homework. Okay, here's the one that hits us right between the eyes, and we say yes. My child's report card clearly communicates what my child is learning, 63%. The report card is outdated. We all know that. So again, the new one is on the runway, ready for takeoff. Now the other one is an interesting one because we try to dig a little deeper with this here. Beecher Road School provides students with healthy food choice, 63%. Now again, we try not to have any egos in this here. We look at the data and say, how do we seize the leadership and move along with it? And we'll take a closer look at that. There were about, I don't remember offhand, but I'll go to the other statistics. There's a large number that parents didn't have an opinion on it, and other people had strong opinions on it. So we do have aspects of our program. Work has been done this past year. Our salad bar, for example, has gotten accolades from different outside organizations. And that's very well used by a number of children and adults. That's a good sign. You see the adults alongside the children with that. But the other side of the aisle, you have some institutional food too that meets state standards. Everything has to. So we gladly, wholeheartedly welcome the goal of continuing, and Al Pullo is a key person with this, as well as Jane Roddy, as well as our wellness committee, of taking a closer look in a public institution with state guidelines and requirements. How can we raise the quality of our food and the choices, and how can we influence children too as far as their choices go? Now, I know Al and Jane have visited a number of different schools and looked at their lunch programs, and that's going to continue. But I won't mention names, but one school that we went to that we were told very highly touted, a great lunch program, but they had a lot of fast foods. It was great because the kids liked it. So we're trying to get that right kind of combination, and we'll come up with objectives, and we'll come up with strategies and use this as a major goal for the year. So that's the general overview. If you look down a little further, it tells you the distribution of how many years the child has been at the school, what grade levels they were on. So we're moving more into data as a way of informing our decision making. Now here's an example. Remember the first one about technology? The school makes effective use of technology for industrial purposes. Well, you have 54 strongly agree, 61 agree, 10 people didn't have an opinion on it, or didn't choose to give an opinion on it. And we have the same for every single question that's down here. Staff is helpful, for example. 49% strongly agree, 63 agree, 9 no opinion, 2 disagree, 2 strongly disagree. Here's an important one that was generated by a board member. I would recommend Beecher Road School to a friend seeking a school for their child. 62 strongly agree, 48 agree, 12 no opinion, 1 disagrees, 2 strongly disagree. So I'll just do it. say too, we're at the beginning stage. We've been trying, this is our first attempt at this year, reaching out, so we have lessons that we've learned, and what we look for input too as far as how to get better with this year.
Thank you.
So I'm happy that we did a survey again, so 2 years in a row, and I'm very happy. So a couple things. One, I would disagree with pulling out either agree or disagree as not including in the denominator. You include all numbers in the denominator. And neither agree or disagree.
No, it is included, yeah.
No, it's not. Because if you include the neither agree or disagree in the denominator and just do strongly.
Oh, no, that's not included, yes. that's
Correct.
right, yeah.
And neither agree or disagree is not the same as no opinion. It's a very different thing on a Likert scale. No opinion or not applicable means the person has no ability to answer that question. In this survey, where it was a very specific question, and it was agree, and then the statement is neither agree or disagree, and you don't have an opportunity to say sort of neutral or something, it is a sign of not supporting the statement. Okay, so it really should be included in the denominator. To throw out in some of these, the neither disagree or agree, it'd be one thing if you always have 3 or 4 of them, which would suggest that 3 or 4 really have no idea what's going on in the school. But on some of these questions, the neither agree or disagree is as high as 25, which takes some of our percentages, which are at 89%, down to 46%, down to 62%. There's no way you can just sort of throw those out.
Okay, so,
Yeah, okay.
right, you want,
Don't-
right, I know,
I'm just saying,
I know.
But I just want to be clear that when we do these in the future, when you read it, when we look at this, we should have the company include that in the denominators.
Can I add something to that, Steve? I'm glad you're bringing up that point, because I would have forgotten to mention it. We had a conference call with their team, we wanted some of their experts on there, just to talk about the survey, figure out rationale. We raised this question, this very question, because we were trying to figure out how the percentages were raised. And one of their key experts, whatever, what he said was that there's disagreement on that there are 2 schools of thought, and they're trying to decide which way to go. But I'm sure we could turn around and do another set of these here too, and say, you know what, do a run where we make the neither agree or disagree as part of the denominator, and see where it falls that way.
I think that is a very important thing.
Can I ask you to clarify? So in my mind, neither agree nor disagree means I cannot make an opinion. I don't know enough to make an opinion.
Well, it
That's
means
how I
you're not
interpret
saying I agree with, if the statement is, my child is challenged, and you're like, well, I don't really think he is, but I wouldn't say he doesn't get any challenging, he's not challenged enough, right? Or, you know, if really someone couldn't make a decision on that, then it would say not applicable or something. But when you put it in the middle of a scale, and it's 5-point scale, many people look at it as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a green thing. So it just, if it was always, I mean, some of these questions that are very clear questions, to have 24 people say I don't agree or disagree means they're neutral on it, which is not a positive response. So I would just.
But it's not really a negative response either.
So in most press games, so I serve on the hospital press gaming committee and patient satisfaction hospital press games every other week and review all these surveys. And the reality is, if it's not a positive statement, it's a negative. Because most people err on the side of being positive. So if you look, and this is going to be my next question is, are there examples from other, like there needs to be a comparison, right? Because from a press game perspective, when you're looking at a hospital, every hospital has press game scores above 80%, okay? So the difference between being 93 and 95 could put you at the bottom of a hospital, being the 10th percentile of all hospitals surveyed, versus being the 60th or 98th percentile. It doesn't take a big swing. So to have a 96 score, you need some comparisons to know what the spread is in general of other school districts. So if Panorama is doing a lot of school districts, they should be able to come to us and say, compared to Connecticut, on these questions, this is where you fall. But to just say 96%, people, when they fill out surveys, tend to, in general, it's a graded up. And then my last thing, just to get my other one.
Can I just
Yeah, go ahead.
add something? Because you're on target as far as relating to our conversations with your team. Because that was the other question we threw out. Can you give us some comparisons? Are there like districts and how do we compare? And what they basically said was, well, you know, they want to be scientific and see if the questions match as far as other districts are. So they don't have anything at this time, but they're looking into developing some kind of criteria that they could have comparisons with, but at this time they do not.
And then my final comment, I think, but my final comment is we should really have them do a top box analysis. And we should be looking at it from top box, which is In general, when you have scores 96, 97, really, really high percentages, you should do an analysis of where you score strongly agree only, and the percentage of strongly agree. Because strongly agree is a real support of what you're doing right. Agree is a tacit support. And so when you have 96 from 100 down to 92 is, you're all these things, there's a big differential when you have someone who it was 22% strongly agreed and 68 of them, agree versus 68 agree strongly and 22% strong. So just because we're so tight in some of these questions, they're 95 to 100%, you should have them do what they call top box analysis, where you just look at the percentage of strongly agreed, but that helps take issues that are not big issues to us, because everyone seems to think we're doing a good job, but it allows us to look at what we're doing well and figure out which ones we need more improvement on. Because if you just look at everything that's 97 and keep it equal, it doesn't really tell you where to focus on. But if there are areas where I strongly agree are down in the 20 to 30% range, those are areas we should be working to improve. So that would be my request.
The feedback really is very helpful, Steve. I have good feelings about the company. They're very willing to work with us. They seem like thinking people. And as I said, this is our first step forward with this here. And we do want to delve into the data. We want to use it as a way of guiding us with our decision making. So thank you for that feedback.
And I would be very happy to talk to anyone to ask
Yeah,
them to make sure we get the
I have you in
analysis.
mind already. Or subcommittee. Since you have so much experience with the surveys. Yeah.
An observation on the question. I would assume that being responsive in these low satisfaction areas, I would agree with Steve's urging to delve into how to satisfy the most satisfied people, what percentage of them are satisfied. But it seems to me if we're going to be credible and we want increased participation, we have to be responsive. We have to be able to demonstrate that we took useful information on this and made changes and made positive things happen.
Absolutely.
And so with regard to the homework issue, is there a school-wide policy or a grade-wide policy or a
Yes.
team policy that sets the standards for everybody?
Yes.
There's a school policy in terms of amount of time.
Amount of time.
Right.
But you know what will help us, if I could tie this into that goal and differentiation, how do we tie homework into that too? There are many aspects of differentiation, so I have a feeling that that's going to be one of the areas too that we take a look at.
So there is a policy, for example, in first grade you spend 30 minutes on homework and 30 minutes on reading or something. When you get to sixth grade, 60 minutes on homework and 30 minutes on reading, I think, is something like that.
But this may be an area where you can never get total satisfaction and total agreement.
That's
because
correct.
of the disparate pieces that you described.
That's correct. Yes.
The other thing that I think is, I haven't read on this.
No, I just think that's the kind of focus that could be very productive in terms of engaging.
Thank you for your suggestion too, Carl.
I think too, in terms of homework, there's probably a difference how people would respond by area. For example, math homework. I think parents find more difficult to kind of deal with than language arts homework, potentially. But you might see some real differences in responses by subject area if you wanted to look at that.
So we can
Parents
create
have
new
a-
questions that will help us look at the data from different angles.
Just on the homework piece, there's the fact that parents have different expectations and standards, but I think there's also a great deal of variety in what they're experiencing. There may be policies, there's maybe one class where the homework is up here and others where it's
That's
down
correct.
here.
That's correct.
And I don't think the survey captures that in any way. There's no way to tell whether these perceptions are about
I think you're right.
what they're actually experiencing or their own expectations.
But if that's an appropriate description of the disparity in practice, then that's an issue.
That is an issue.
Right, but this survey wasn't geared towards getting at that. I think that's part of it, is that these questions were very, very general. It's on a 5-point Likert scale, which, as Steve talked about, has very different ways of interpreting the responses. So if there are areas that we want to delve into deeper to specifically ask people about the homework policy, for example, then we need to devise a different survey that asks different questions in this survey. So there's only going to be so much that we're going to be able to tell from this as a snapshot, and then if we did this next year, we'd be able to ask the same questions, and we would have at least a comparative point of how did we do this next year versus this past year.
But by asking a couple of simple questions, we've already discovered that there's a disparity in practice, policy may be constant, but there's very different.
Yeah, but that
approaches.
was what the survey was here to do.
Well, but I think, right, well, one of the things that the survey is, I mean, like, for instance, we know this in one of the report cards, it showed up in the survey. I mean, it is, you know, giving us valid information, not in-depth exactly what teachers, not giving the same amount of homework as somebody else, but it's giving us an overview of something that then it would be great to go further with, ask more questions.
Right.
But it seems to be working. I mean, it's giving us, it seems to be appropriate feedback. I mean, there's things we know are wrong, and it said those are wrong.
Well, one step leads to another. Again, we're working with an outside firm that specializes in this here. We want to get better and better. Our core belief is that the parents have a lot to contribute as far as feedback, and if we take a look, the representative sampling and try to increase that it will help us, school administration, school board, in planning our goals and objectives for the year. Some concrete things that we want to do, because we want to show that we're not just taking surveys, but taking actions. But one of the concrete things is really moving ahead with our reporting system. That's one on that area. Another is to take some definite steps, demonstrated steps in differentiation and continuing to move that along. That's always a year-by-year process. And with our food choices, we're trying to use that as a goal too, as far as moving ahead. We have to use some key goals that we want to focus on. There are lots of things that we could be doing, but trying to tie things together too. Yes.
Kind of a quick question. In this same survey that we did last year, did we actually have the kids finish the survey or complete a survey?
This was for the adults.
Right.
With the children,
Yeah, I would say last year. I'm just thinking specifically about those two concerns that surprised us with the 5th and 6th graders not feeling like they can go to their teacher, or that 22%.
yeah, that's the one I mentioned. Right.
And then not feeling safe in the bathrooms, I remember.
Yes.
I don't remember what that percentage was.
Yeah.
But, so I'm wondering if is there a tool that we are planning on having the kids complete to see if that situation has improved?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And we don't want to overwhelm parents with surveys, but now this coming year, what we're looking at is, and it's a state requirement too, for every 2 years, we're looking at a survey that our children will participate in, as well as our different members of our staff, to get a sense of the school climate and environment. And those will be areas that we're taking a good look at. And we anticipate working with this firm and really trying to get precise questions, and every year trying to get more precise and dig where we think we have to dig to really understand our environment.
I think we
Oh, excuse me.
You did?
Pretty quick. I was just, could you remind me what the response rate was last year? I know it was a little different.
The
in
response
that
rate was
multiple
very
people
large.
answer.
But it's hard to compare the two, because the response rate last year, all they went to was the screen, and they just,
32 people in one family that
Right.
responded
yeah,
last year.
and they just went to the screen and just went on. Here you have an access code, so you have an equity if you know exactly who's taking it as far as that. It's only one.
But clearly it's an additional barrier. and
Yeah, so it's a different
pluses and
factor.
minuses.
Yeah, so part of the conversation again with the group was, well, how can we teach the core principles of having that type of security, but at the same time look for speedier ways? And some suggestions were made with that too, because we do want to get it up higher. We tried so hard to get it up higher. We were beating the bushes over there. Not only myself, but others were going out to the highways and byways asking people to take it and sending home all kinds of notices and so on. But I have a feeling that, again, this is year one, I think year two we'll get a better response.
Chris?
And you may have already answered this, and I apologize, but
Yeah.
is there, what are the plans to release some of the information to, or how to give feedback to the parents?
Yeah, I'd like to put the whole thing on the website.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's a question of how fast, we're building the website, so how fast we can get it up there. I'd say make data transparent.
yeah.
This way we have conversations, it stimulates conversations as we go along. There's been very valuable feedback, and that's what I was looking for from the board.
Was this given the same time this year as it was last year, or was this later this year? Later this year. Yeah, because I mean, I know personally it just seemed like a crazy time of the year when I wonder if that's part of the lower.
One I was suggesting, we might give it a little earlier. But again, there's two schools of thought from our experts that that the end of the year is a good time before the parents leave, but not the end of the year, maybe a little before the end of the year, where they've experienced it and you're setting your goals for the new year. And then they said some districts do it at mid-year also, as a way of doing it. So that's our choice, our choice. But yeah, it probably would have been better to give it a little sooner.
Any questions, comments?
But thank you for that very valuable feedback. We'll take everything into mind as we plan for next year. And hence my report.
Okay, facilities.
Thank you.
Policy. No more policy. The
We have
last policy.
We haven't had any more meetings, we have one final policy we adopted, which was submitted for review, but it's ready. Motion.
Move that we approve policy 7551 as presented.
Second.
Any questions, discussions? All those in favor?
Sorry, Carl, that's not going to be the Lynn Scott Wayland.
You know, could be. Finance committee. Steve.
The finance committee met last week, and the only action item, we're going to hear numbers, is to approve the line item transfers for the 2013-14 budget. So I make a motion to that effect.
Second.
So this, throughout the year, if you remember, we created a surplus, and using that surplus, we put those items towards projects, some that sort of went during the year, others that went at the end of the year. We do not move money around in the budget during the year until we get to the end of the year, and we can sort of just do it a one-time deal. So the report before you, the line item transfers, is essentially basically getting us in line with where money was actually spent, where we saved money, and where we spent it, and all those line item transfers go through at once. So we just need a motion to approve that.
So I
Oh, we
agree.
had it.
Right.
Okay.
So, any questions?
I would just offer one observation on that explanation, that we've been the beneficiary in recent years of net favorable variances. So that we've always had a plan in mind at the finance committee level of how deficits were going to be met by transferring net favorable variances. In the event that we ended up in a situation where we had a net unfavorable situation, then we would have to be more attentive to the kinds of communications that were coming to the board. Because I think policy requires that any line item adjustment in excess of $1,000 needs to be acted upon immediately. Clearly that we would spend the bulk of our time from month to month managing line item transfers. It's not been an issue when we have a net favorable, but in the event of a net deficit, we will have to be more attentive.
That's a good point, Carl, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's $4,000 if there's a transfer that we have to go to the board.
I believe it's 5,000.
5,000, okay, yeah, whatever it is, but that's a good point.
Any other question?
5,000.
We've, on an ongoing basis, we've approved net $5,000 to $10,000 transfers as part of the monthly review of the favorable variance.
Yeah, I stand corrected, it's $5,000.
Okay, all those in favor? Katie, Houston?
Summer vacations.
Okay, public comment? Marcia? No? Okay, then.
Move adjourned.